Hi friends, welcome to my New England story and welcome to my backyard. Today I wanted to do a little bit of an introduction, so I thought I would step in front of the camera, introduce myself, and tell you a little bit of my New England story so you kind of get an idea of the reason for the channel. So let's go ahead and get started. If you'd like, grab a cup of coffee or tea or whichever you would prefer, and sit back, relax, and we'll get started. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Carla Ludwig, and I am a true blue Michigander. I was born and raised in Michigan and lived there my entire life up until 3 years ago. So anyway, you will detect possibly somewhat of an accent. I've been told by many people out here that I have one, but I am who I am, and it is what it is. So I've been married for just under 34 years. My husband was born in Minnesota, and he moved to Michigan about age 7, and he lived there up until 3 years ago. So it was a big move for us coming to New England. The two of us, we have 3 daughters, and they are our entire life. We just love them to pieces. So as far as my New England story, it actually began about 14 years ago when my oldest daughter was a senior in high school, and she decided that for her senior trip, she wanted to do a mother-daughter trip. And so, as many of you mothers can relate to, when your 17-year-old daughter comes to you and says she wants to go on a vacation with you, you don't ask twice and you go. So I was like, sure, where would you like to go? What would you like to do? And I kind of was thinking, she wants to go to Florida, or she wants to go on a cruise, or what most teenagers do. But she said nope, she wanted to go to New England. Now, we had never been to New England before. Where it really had kind of initiated is one of our favorite shows, even to this day, is Gilmore Girls. And the story, if you don't know it, takes place in a fictional town called Stars Hollow. And that is in Connecticut. So she had said she'd like to go to Connecticut and Vermont, and so we started doing some research and just kind of were interested in and wanted to see the town of Stars Hollow. What were those towns based on? Where did they come up with Stars Hollow? And so we researched all the Connecticut towns, and we set out our little back in the day it was MapQuest. We had our printout of all of our directions, and we started out on our trip to New England. So we went to Connecticut first, and again, keep in mind it is it would have been probably end of March, beginning of April, spring break time. And Connecticut was beautiful. We explored a lot of the state, again, going to all of the little towns, and just fell in love with it immediately. I had also, because we wanted the true experience, we had set up to stay in different bed and breakfast or country inns, and do it the New England way. So really loved Connecticut, and then we headed up to Vermont, and I had made reservations there at a bed and breakfast. And one thing we have been, I should say I've learned since living here, New England doesn't have 4 seasons, it has 5, and the 5th season is mud season. And that's about that time of year. So Connecticut had been sunny and beautiful when we were there, but then when we got up to Vermont, it had been kind of, there was still snow on the ground, and it wasn't, it was a little cloudy, so we got to experience mud season for sure. And on our way to our bed and breakfast, we're literally driving up a mountain, and you see a sign that says Moose Crossing, which I had never seen in my life, and I was just like, oh my goodness, do we need to turn around? I was starting to get a little apprehensive of where we were going. However, we got to the top of this mountain, and there was this beautiful white bed and breakfast, and all the little white candles in the window, and it was just so beautiful. So I said, okay, we will go ahead and give this a chance. And we got in and introduced to the couple that owned the bed and breakfast, and her father was there, and we immediately fell in love with them. I mean, they were just so welcoming, and their house was just beautiful. We had a great time in Vermont, and when it was time to go home, we were just, we were really sad to say our goodbyes, and actually ended up becoming good friends with the people to this day. We consider them some of our best friends, so we made lifelong friends with them also. So heading home, I have been on vacations before, and I was always kind of excited to get home. I just loved being home, and but this trip was a little different. Leaving New England, I was just sad. I had kind of an empty feeling. I just fell in love with the area. So fast forward a few years, the daughter that I came out here with originally ended up getting an internship. She was a junior in college, and I ended up getting an internship just outside of Boston. And so after that internship was done, they ended up offering her a full-time job. So things were not the greatest in Michigan as far as the economy went. So it was very hard, but we knew that was best for her. So we moved her out here. And as much as I wanted to be the one moving out, it was actually her. So like I said, we moved her out here, and then a couple years later, daughter number 2 got an internship, again, just outside of Boston, and she ended up moving out here. So now we have 2 daughters out here, and our third daughter was still in high school at the time, and we're back in Michigan. We also had elderly parents. I am an only child. My mother died when I was 7. So my dad at the time was 91, and his health was declining. So I certainly couldn't leave. And my husband is the youngest of 6. And his parents were, older too at the time. We knew it wasn't our time, but we took a lot of vacations out here, and I also did a little bit of research as far as areas, because New England was new to me. So I took advantage of the trips, coming out to visit the girls, and I was exploring or researching. And of course, after my first trip out here, I had I discovered Yankee Magazine. It was at one of the bed and breakfasts, and it's actually this one right here. I still subscribe to it. It's wonderful. I love it. If you ever see it, it's just filled with all kinds of New England things. So I would use that sometimes as my basis of, what is it I would like to see. And one of our trips coming home from, we were coming from Maine. So we were driving through what was southern New Hampshire, and we hit an area. It was Dublin, New Hampshire, and my husband said, this is it. This is where I want to live. And I'm like, where are we? I had never been to New Hampshire before. And then ironically, we ended up passing the offices of Yankee Magazine. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, I've been reading this magazine for years. This is where it is. I was pretty excited about it. But anyway, so then future trips, I started then exploring a little bit of New Hampshire. Up until that point, I had been pretty much concentrating on Massachusetts. I just assumed if we were to live out our dream and move to New England, that it would be Massachusetts because that's where our kids lived. So anyway, I came home and started researching a little bit of New Hampshire, but again, at this point, it's still a dream. So now in the year of 2018, 2018 was a tough year for us. Like I said, I am an only child, and my father was 91 at the time, and he'd had diabetes for years, and he started having issues with kidney failure. And so, I mean, my job was taking care of him. I ended up the last month practically really kind of living. I moved back into the house with him because he was needing 24-hour care. I did have hospice come in. They helped out for, a few weeks before he passed. But if you've ever gone through that before, it's a horrific experience. It was probably one of the hardest years of my life, just emotionally. And he did end up passing away. I have no regrets of the time that I devoted to him. At the end, he was able to pass away in his home and on the farm that he lived the majority of his life. So no regrets there. But then a week later, unexpectedly, my husband's mother passed away, and it was a lot, needless to say. Very stressful time for us, and so it was not a great year. We had a lot of selling of homes and things that you go through when your parents pass away. The following then January of 2019, my husband had said, if we want to try to move to New England, now is the time to try. So he decided to start, looking for jobs, sending out his resume, and I just said, if it's meant to be, it will happen. If not, then it's not meant to be. So he started sending out his resume, and he started getting calls almost immediately. It was a little crazy, kind of unexpected. And so long story short, he did end up getting an interview with a company, and it was he had applied for a job in Massachusetts. So he had gotten an interview with a company that had branches throughout New England, but this job specifically was in Massachusetts. So pretty much what we had planned on doing, since our children lived in Massachusetts, that's kind of where we thought we would try to live. And when he was interviewing with them, on the first interview, they had asked him, because they have branches throughout New England, if you had a choice, where is it that you would like to live? And he said, I would love to live in New Hampshire. I love New Hampshire. So they said, well, we'll keep that in mind, in the future. So the next day, they call him back and they said, you wouldn't believe it, but our salesman in New Hampshire quit yesterday. Would you be interested in that position instead of the one in Massachusetts? And he said, absolutely. So fast forward now, a few weeks later, they actually flew both Mark and I out to New Hampshire, and now it's in February. And the night they set us up in a hotel, and the night before the interview, we got about 9 inches of snow. So welcome to New Hampshire, right? So that was a little adventure, and him having to get up real early and get out and get everything scraped off of the car before heading to the interview. And then after the interview, we actually took a day or two and explored New Hampshire because, like I said, we hadn't done a whole lot of vacationing out here at that time. So we headed back and, again, kind of, well, this is the next step, but we will see what happens. And I don't know how, everything happened so quick. I don't know timing, how it worked, but he did get the job offer. And so now it's like, wow, this is real. And I will tell you, as excited as we were about the move, it was also very, very scary. And oh my goodness, are we doing the right thing? I mean, like I said, I lived in Michigan my whole life. I didn't know any different. So, but everything just was falling in place. So it just felt like it was meant to be. So the plan was we ended up getting a cottage to rent because he needed a place to stay. So the plan was for him to come out first. Obviously, I mean, he had to start his job, his new job. And my youngest daughter and I would just stay back in Michigan and finish packing and try to sell our house. So we got a cottage for him. It was hard finding anything because the time of year, I mean, I don't know, I guess it's New England. Everybody was renting everything. Plus we had a dog and a cat, so we had to find a place that would take them. But we got a cute little cottage on a really cute lake, and it all worked out. And so my daughter and I are back in Michigan, and we put the house up for sale, and within 3 days we had an offer, and it was a cash offer. So now it's like, oh my goodness, we have to really pack up and get out. So we did just that. My 2 older daughters ended up flying back to Michigan, and they got in on a Friday. They helped us finish packing everything. My oldest daughter was actually getting married in Vermont that summer, so we had a bridal shower for her on Saturday. She had her bachelorette party that night. The next day we had a retirement party for a cousin of mine. And Monday morning, 2 of my daughters drove out here. They left. My middle daughter stayed with me while the movers arrived, and we kind of finished things up there. And then she flew out to fly back to Massachusetts. And so I was the last one there. After the movers left, I just went through the house, and to be very honest, I cried a lot because, like I said, we raised our children there, and I don't know, it was tough. It was tough to say goodbye. And like I tell everyone, I just cried all the way through Ohio. But at the same time, it was very exciting. So now we were out here, and now we had to find a house. So as far as the house hunting went, we had the previous fall when we were out here on vacation. Actually, I was out here with a friend of mine, and we just kind of wanted to see, because at the time, keep in mind now, we didn't know we were moving. We were just doing research. Wanted to see, what can you get for your money out here. And of course, we wanted an older home. That was our preference. And so that fall, my friend and I were out here, and we had hooked up with a realtor, and we're just looking at a few houses just to see. And my husband had seen actually our house online, and he said, I want you to go look at this one. It's just intriguing to me. So we did. We came out and we looked at it, and we liked it, but we were not in the market to buy a house at the time. So after we had seen it, it did have an offer on it, and was supposedly sold. So now the following spring, when we actually were living out here and really looking for a house, like I said, we wanted an older home, but at the time there weren't many older houses on the market. So, and we were in somewhat of a hurry because we only had the cottage rented for 2 months. She had it rented out for the rest of the summer, so we had to get out. So, no pressure. No pressure at all. But anyway, little did we know that the sale on this house had fallen through. And so, and at this point, my husband, who is in outside sales, he kind of had an idea of what part of the state he needed to be living in for his territory. And this house fell in that territory area. So he said, I want to go look at that house, because he had not seen it yet. So after we had looked at several houses, in actually an area about 40 minutes from here, because that's the area we thought we had to live in, we came back, and my husband, he just fell in love with the house immediately. I mean, I liked it too. And the person that we bought it from had really taken care of it. So it really was in move-in condition. And we put in an offer. And obviously we got the house. My husband always said it was just waiting for us. He just feels that the house was waiting for us. And so it's a federal colonial home. It was built in 1796. If the house could just talk and tell me stories, I say that all the time, because it's just amazing that this house is over 200 years old and still standing. Another thing I wanted to mention too is I had stated earlier how I was so sad to leave New England on our first trip when we came out here. And every trip out here, my husband always joked, he said, oh, she only cries for 500 miles on the way home. But I always just had such an empty feeling, and I'd never had that before. I always enjoyed vacationing, but I loved going back home. I love home. I love creating home decor, anything about it. And it was an odd feeling for me, because whenever I left New England, I felt like I was leaving my home. So when my father passed away, a friend of his, for Mark and I, had gotten each of us, he was a member of Ancestry.com, and he had done all the research and given each of us in a little binder our family history. And of course, I didn't have a lot of time to look at those right away. We kind of breezed through them, but after settling here at the house, I pulled those out again, and I literally was shocked. I don't know if I mentioned before, but my mother had passed away when I was 7, and I didn't know a lot of history on my maternal side of the family. I knew my father's side, obviously, and my grandparents were actually the first to come from Czechoslovakia to the U.S. And when I was looking at my mother's side, I was just shocked, because I have so many family members buried who had lived out here in New England, mainly Connecticut, Massachusetts. I do have some family members buried here in New Hampshire and one in Vermont. And I was just shocked. I had no clue. And when I opened up my husband's, same thing. He has family members mainly down in Massachusetts that are buried. And there's actually one of his ancestors. There's a cemetery that's actually named after him. So that is on our agenda. We want to, explore and go look up our ancestors. And I'd been told by a friend, and I do believe it. She said that when you have, that history that of your family here, that's where they started, there is a draw. It's much more than just enjoying the beauty and the history of New England. My heritage is here, and so it kind of explains a lot of my desire to live here. It was a very strong desire, and we are just happy. We're just so happy. We love it here. The people are so nice. I tell a lot of my friends back in Michigan, I feel like I moved in 1950 because everybody is just very kind and trusting. That is what I have come across. So anyway, that is my New England story. What I would like to do with the channel is, if I ever find out any more history, I will share that with you. Share renovations on our home, just putting our touch on it and exploring all of New England. I love going all on the back roads and the general stores and the cute shops and consignment stores. I mean, I have a blast doing all of that. And like I said, I love homemaking. I love baking. I love home decor, and I would like to share that with you too. So I appreciate any of your subscribing to my channel, and your support. And I'm just here to share with kindred spirits, people that maybe you would like to come visit New England. Maybe you would like to possibly move to New England, or just as I did for many years when I had, started reading blogs on New England or following different people on Instagram, living through them and sharing their experiences. I hope you're able to do that with me. And only I am looking at it through a Michigander's eyes. I'm a Flatlander coming to New England. So please do subscribe, and I hope that you enjoy my videos. And if you have any questions or kind comments, I certainly would hope that you would take the time to comment down below, and we will see you in future videos. So have a beautiful day. Thanks so much for your time. Bye-bye.